I know this dream well. I walk for many hours. I rest beneath peach blossom. It's hot, but the wind is cool. The stream gurgles. Out of nowhere, through dust and heat, women appear. They tease me for being a monk. They offer me food and drinks and wish me luck on my journey. As the women disappear, the shimmering mirage on the horizon reminds me that I am in a dream, a reflection of my desires, to go to the Soul Mountain and to find the roots of my tradition in the ancient kingdom of Zhang. My name, Gelek, means good virtue or good merit. Sometimes I wonder if it was the name that made me virtuous enough to be a monk. In the 9 years I've been here, in Kathmandu, I've learnt about Bon philosophy and history. I've even become a geshe, a doctor of philosophy. But for me, my religion remains within the confines of the monastery walls. Bon is an old religion, older than Buddhism. It survived many persecutions, and at one point, it was almost extinct. It was my teacher, Tenzin Namdak, who kept the religion alive. He is my inspiration. And yet, sometimes I wake up thinking, what's the point of pouring water into these bowls? Every day I offer water without knowing if it's received by the gods. But then my teacher's words come to my mind. Everything is a perception of the mind. If you offer with pure mind and clear motivation, that's all that counts. My doubts are thus overshadowed by my belief. After all, this is the life that I chose, to be a Bon monk.
People come to Kathmandu for different reasons. Gelek came here over 9 years ago in search of his teacher. For me, Kathmandu was an assignment. I was sent here 23 years ago with the American Peace Corps. And now, this is home. Gelek's teacher, Tenzin Namdak, had less choice. He escaped Tibet in 1959, bringing with him some of the oldest teachings of Tibet, the teachings of Bon. Somehow Kathmandu accommodates everybody. Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, Bonpos, Christians all live in the city. Nepal as a country fascinates me. I've traveled around Nepal for a few years as a development worker, but it was the colors that captured my heart. Now I'm a photographer, capturing the vitality and the diversity of this nation. I have been commissioned to do a photo story on Bon, the indigenous religion of Tibet, for Oxford University. My first stop is the Bon Monastery here. The monastery was founded in 1987. After escaping Tibet, Tenzin Namdak spent 25 years in exile in India. He finally came to Kathmandu in 1986 to set up a monastery that would serve the small Bon community scattered throughout the mountainous regions of Nepal. No one knows much about Bon, who the Bonpos were, where they came from, or how Bon was established. Other than a few ancient texts, there is very little to go on. It is believed that Bon flourished in western Tibet in a kingdom called Zhang. Our photo story will follow a pilgrimage to Zhang and Mount Kailash, the holiest mountain in Asia. Hindus, Buddhists, Bonpos, Jains all worship this mountain. For the Bonpos, though, it is the soul of their tradition, their soul mountain, and the center of their lost kingdom of Zhang. The only problem is that we have to find one monk to help us search for the capital of Zhang and to unravel its secrets.
My teacher, Tenzin Namdak, went to Kailash 50 years ago. His pilgrimage was difficult. He survived a bad fall and frostbite and couldn't go further to the ancient capital of Zhang. Ancient texts describe Zhang as this magnificent kingdom, its capital made of gold, turquoise and crystal. I know the difficulties that lie ahead. This journey won't be easy, but I have to live my own experience. And despite my teacher's stories, my expectations still remain high.
We'll begin our trip in Humla, in far western Nepal. Over the years, I've been involved in several books and films in Humla, and I've convinced Oxford University to invite some shamans along. They have made many pilgrimages to Mount Kailash, and their help could prove invaluable. Organizing big trips such as this one requires endless preparations. This trip will be long and through difficult terrain. Accidents, illness, anything can happen. Our first destination is Simikot, in the district of Humla, 650 kilometers from Kathmandu. We will be joined by the shamans here, and we will proceed on foot another 65 kilometers across Humla to the narrow pass on the Nepal-China border. If we are lucky, we will find a truck to take us to Manasarovar and Kailash. From there, it is 6 hours to Kyunglung, the capital of Zhang. Humla is one of the most remote areas of Nepal, at an elevation of 2,900 meters. There is a curious mix of people here. The Khasa tribe migrated from the plains of the south carrying Hindu gods with them. The Bird came from the north, bringing their Bonpo gods with them. Subsequent waves of Buddhism have left only the faintest traces of Burn here. In Humla, the spirits of land, water and sky control destiny, harvest and fertility. These spirits speak through a human oracle, a shaman, otherwise known as a dami. These practices could be all that's left of Burn in these remote regions. A decision as important as going to Mount Kailash requires a consultation with the spirits, especially when it's the year of the horse, when the doors of the inner sanctum of Kailash are open to pilgrims, an opportunity that comes only once every 12 years. A pilgrimage around the inner circuit will bring the Dami's great merit, but it's up to the spirits of Zhang to decide. Until the 8th century, Zhang covered a vast area, including parts of Pakistan and far western China. Zhang was ruled by Bonpo kings, and under their reign, the Burn religion flourished across Central Asia. But the seeds of change had already been sown. In the 7th century, the king of central Tibet developed strong political ties with his neighbors. He married princesses from Nepal, China, and Changshu, and invited Indian philosophers to Tibet. Indian sages brought with them a new religion, Buddhism. By the 8th century, central Tibet had become a stronghold for Buddhism, and under Buddhist rule, central Tibet started to extend its frontiers. Burn was persecuted, many were converted, and many fled the kingdom of Changshu. Now, the Burn community is dispersed not only in Tibet, but also throughout the Himalayan regions, including Humla.
Today, after a long time, I became an observer to a ritual and not a part of it. The ritual did not convince me. I'm told that the Dhamis channel the spirits of Zhang. But I'm also told that some Dhamis sacrifice animals. Many people believe that these practices are pun. Yet our teachings condemn killings. The first thing we are taught is Ningje, compassion to all living beings. Pilgrimage is the easiest way to purify the mind, and if I am swayed by doubts, I could fail, even in the easiest path. I have to travel many days with the Dhamis, and my compassion should extend to them. According to my teacher, obstacles can strengthen practice and faith, as long as one does not get attached to them. This could be one of the many trials I'll have to face during the pilgrimage.
We have been told that we cannot make a start today. Not all the Dhamis are in agreement with the auspicious time, and we have to invite each one personally. Taka Bahadur has been to Mount Kailash 3 times. Circumambulation of the mountain 3 times in life has great importance for a Dhami. Taka Bahadur, like other Dhamis, consults the spirits to cure diseases and solve problems in the village. The more merit he accumulates, the more powerful he'll become. Taka Bahadur has multiplied his merits by going to Kailash the last year of the horse. This year, Taka Bahadur says he cannot go. His spirit god has come to him as a white eagle, warning him that if he goes, he will suffer in the hands of anti-government insurgents, who are now in control of this area. Finding all the Dhamis is not going to be easy. Their houses are scattered in different villages, and visiting all of them could mean a whole day of walking. Tsering, a shaman priest, assists the Dhamis in channeling the spirits. His role in the community is important. He interprets on behalf of the spirits. Tsering inherited his powers from his father, but he did not want to follow the tradition and became a policeman instead. For 5 years, his gods tormented him until he finally gave up his job and became a shaman priest like his father. Tsering has suggested that he organize a meeting of all the Dhamis to decide who is going. In the 2 nights that we've been here, there has been heavy fighting between the army and the insurgents. The army commander of the area has told us that we cannot leave just yet. Everyone is anxious to start on the journey. They are afraid that it will be impossible to leave if they stay any longer. Preparations for the departure are being made, just in case. 5 out of the 8 Dhamis have decided to join us: Raptan, Sonam Gyalpo, Nagdara, Mangale, and Pema. With the 2 shaman priests, Tsering and Yeda Lama, Zhang, the local anthropologist from Humla, we are now going to be a team of 10 people.
After 9 days of waiting, we're finally leaving Humla. It's a matter of much excitement to me. My feelings about this place are mixed. Certain words, certain objects are definitely from Changshu. Even the Shön dance is inherently from Changshu. But people here consider themselves Buddhists or Hindus, And despite shaman priests like Zhang invoking spirits from Zhang, nobody is practicing Pon here. It is said that before Pon philosophy was introduced by the Buddha of the Pon religion, Dönpa Shenrab, people practiced a kind of shamanism. Some people call it Black Pon. But I do not see the connection between these practices and the higher philosophy of Pon. Everyone has consumed enormous quantities of Zhang, alcohol that plays tricks with your mind. Zhang, who is otherwise a methodical man, has become like an excited child. But the people of this area have welcomed us with true heart. I don't think it matters much to them whether I'm a Pon monk or not. They've given me hospitality and treated me well, even giving me butter blessings. The simple hospitality of the villagers is touching. The people of Humla are like people from my village in Tibet. Simple, hospitable, and true to their hearts.
With every butter blessing, there is an obligatory swig of strong, sweet Zhang. My head is spinning. We have to walk 65 kilometers, 5 days, along the Karnali River, through terrain notorious for insurgents. It makes me nervous. The $100 demanded by the insurgent has been paid, but whether this is enough to keep them away is yet to be seen. Nepal's 6-year-long insurgency for a republic state has already claimed 8,000 lives. We must seem like an odd bunch. A monk, 5 damis, 2 shaman priests, an anthropologist and a photographer. We have many days ahead of us, and it's important that the mood remains light. The 5 damis have 5 different moods. Whilst Zhang and Yara continue to tease each other, Geleg remains an observer. They have little in common except for their love of nettle soup.
Many people have walked these trails from Tibet in harsh conditions. 4 decades ago, my teacher, Tenzin Namdak, left Tibet. Those were difficult times. He arrived in a country where he knew neither the language nor the culture, and yet he founded the teachings of Pon in India and Nepal. We say that a teacher is greater than the Buddha, the enlightened one. The Buddha of the Pon religion, Dönpa Shenrab, the compassionate one, left his knowledge for our benefit. Yet, without a learned teacher, the knowledge would have had little meaning. For me, my teacher is kinder than the Buddha. He has shown me the right path. I owe this pilgrimage to him.
This is our 2nd day on the trail. These half-empty trails were once full of caravans carrying salt and wool from Tibet. The salt trade died with the roads to Tibet. Now, it is just the sheep and their herders who are left to be photographed. Off the trail, there are many hidden places, each one with its own peculiar story. The deity that protects this monastery is considered extremely powerful, wrathful towards his enemies, but generous to his followers. 15 years ago, the old Lama of the monastery had asked Zhang, who was a policeman, to intervene in the marriage of his daughter. When Zhang refused, his body broke into painful sores. His wife became seriously ill. Both nearly died. They tried everything, medicines, sorcery, and the deity was finally pacified. Nobody is comfortable here, except Geleg. It's our 4th day of the pilgrimage. It has been a steep climb from Bumanchekola, a tributary of the Karnali River. The 800-meter climb takes you up to the village of Yari at 3,700 meters, where there are few places protected from the wind. The Damis have decided to camp further down, but we are taking the risk of being more exposed. I want to photograph dawn from a high vantage point. Geleg has immediately made friends with the children of Zhang Noi village. This is not the first time the children are drawn to him. Geleg is the Pied Piper of Yari. If they could, the children would follow him all the way to Kailash. The game is not going well for Zhang, the local anthropologist. He has been losing considerable amounts of money to the Damis. This game will probably go on well into the night.
Tonight's silence is a welcome change. It's in solitude and silence that I am the most comfortable. A monk's training demands that. I realized that my expectations of the Damis were too high. I thought they would meditate and practice. Never had I thought that they would drink and gamble. I'm almost afraid to venture into the cooking area lest they slaughter animals for meat. This is the 5th day of our trip, and my body is a little tired. Last night was cold. I should be more resilient. Perhaps the altitude is taking its toll. After all, we're 2,000 meters above Kathmandu. Thomas, on the other hand, seems unaffected. For a man who is 12 years older than me, he is in good shape. He not only bounds up the trail, but the minute he sees anything to photograph, he darts off with the energy of a young man. Maybe I've been sitting in the monastery for too long. I seem to have forgotten the art of walking these mountain roads.
By tonight, we should reach the border. The 600-meter climb to Tarodunga is true to its name. Tarodunga means a steep rock, and the climb is difficult, even for animals. Once at the top, you cross the pass at 4,330 meters. The Damis have gone ahead of us. One of the horses has eaten some poisonous grass and is dying. A death before the border is considered a bad omen, but the Damis are playing their usual self. The horse's death has not affected their appetite. I can understand Geleg's feelings. The Powa ceremony that he performed on a dying horse is a prayer to send its soul to a better realm. Eating seems to be the last thing on Geleg's mind. He is already anxious about crossing into Tibet. He has had to change into jeans to avoid being singled out as a monk. Without realizing it, we have stumbled across a power spot, an important spring source that feeds directly into Manasarovar, many miles away. It is still another 3 hours to the border town, and Sonyam Gyalpo going into trance is not going to help. The Damis have announced that they have no identity documents. I will have to bribe my way through the border. That's a problem for tomorrow. The drinking session has already started. There is no way that we can make it to the border today.
The Damis can be endearing. They find humor in the smallest things, and I find myself participating in their bantering. But my mind is unsettled. Death brings home reality and clarifies the purpose of life. Through Dzogchen, the highest practice of Pon philosophy, I want to be free from the cycle of death and rebirth and dissolve into the natural state, into the pure white light of the rainbow body. This is not possible until the mind is clear, like a mirror, reflecting one's true nature. As long as the mind is clouded, reality is obscured by the duality of our minds. Ultimately, good, bad, happiness, sadness, everything is a layer of this cloud.
After 7 days of walking, the 3 hours in the back of a bumpy truck is almost a pleasure. We've had to hitch a ride with other pilgrims, leaving our driver in a broken-down truck. We have arrived at the shores of Lake Manasarova, a jewel cut into the rough landscape, our first destination in Tibet. It is understandable why so many people and so many religions stand in awe of this lake. For many, the lake represents a lotus flower with 8 petals. For others, she is a consort to Mount Kailash. But for the Damis, this is perhaps the most important destination. Lake Manasarovar is a source of power for the Damis, where their ancestors have always come for rebirth and renewal. Bathing in the cold water will give them divine wisdom and empower them with the language of gods. But first, they must prepare. They have to invoke their gods and appease them for all their trespasses. They have to make their ritual offerings. While their ancestors used to sacrifice animals, they now offer dough, representing the sun, the moon, their own clans, and their communities. Every action has to be pure, for otherwise, this could be the last trip for the Damis. They believe that there is an underwater kingdom beneath the lake's surface, where sea sheep and water yaks dwell. If their intentions are pure, they will be endowed with spiritual blessing. If not, they could be dragged under the water and will be lost in the underwater kingdom for eternity. Everyone is on guard. Sonam Gyalpo, like the rest of the Damis, cannot swim. Sonam Gyalpo has come to the lake with a mission. He is the youngest of all Damis, a Dami without the power of speech. For 5 years he has been possessed by his god, who comes to him as a woman in white. Sonam has inherited his powers from an old Dami who died 5 years ago in the village. Now that he has finally returned the dreadlocks of the old Dami to the lake, Sonam will be able to speak the language of the gods. For the Damis, it is their gods who will decide whether they sink or swim. But Geleg worries me. Although he says he can swim, I am not sure. The water is freezing, but if worse comes to worse, I may have to go in myself. Pema Dami has found a grain of barley, a treasure from the underwater kingdom. He says that his village will now have a good harvest and that his son will inherit his powers once he dies. This is a good sign for Pema and the village.
This lake has shown many realities to many people. Today, it has clearly shown me that the Damis were possessed by spirits. I don't know the nature of the spirits, whether they are good or bad, whether they are Pern or not. But that shouldn't matter to me. I should have seen beyond my own perceptions. It is irrelevant whether the Damis are called Pern, Buddhist or Hindus, or a mixture of all three. What is important is that they are sincere and compassionate. My teacher says that our mind is essentially as clear as a lake. But without practice, perceptions appear true, concrete and real. We are easily tricked by our own minds. I should learn from this lake. It reflects everything. It reflects me, the sun, the clouds. But for the lake, everything that it reflects is an illusion. In fact, the only thing that exists is the water, clear, pure, in its natural state. The essence of the mind is clear and empty, but my mind is still far away from the inner calm of this lake.
It is the full moon of Sakadawa, birthday of Shakyamuni Buddha. We have arrived at the foot of Mount Kailash, the starting point for the Kora, or circumambulation of the mountain. There must be over 50,000 people here, yet it amazes me how Geleg takes everything in his stride. Even among all these people, he is completely at home. The Damis, on the other hand, seem a little lost and intimidated. Buddhists from all over the world come to see the Tarboche, a 40-meter pole wrapped with prayer flags being raised. The volume of people is overwhelming. As this is the year of the horse, the same year that Buddha was born, everyone is in a complete frenzy to gather as much merit as they can. Simply being here on Sakadawa is meritorious. Tying a prayer flag, burning juniper incense, offering a ceremonial scarf or giving alms, all actions have the degree of merit for the next life. Some scholars say that the Tarboche is a bond ceremony, where the pole symbolizes the primal tree connecting the earth to the sky. The Bompo see it as a symbol of Buddhist domination. But for most pilgrims, the pole is sacred, a celebration of Buddha's birthday, a reason for much jubilation. According to ancient Burn texts, Shakyamuni Buddha in his former life was said to be the disciple of Trungpa Shenrab, the Buddha of Burn. While there are many differences in opinions between Bompos and Buddhists, the ultimate goal of both religions is still the same: to gain enlightenment. With the raising of the Tarboche, the crowd's mood has become rather wild. I myself have nearly been knocked over 3 times. Photographing here can be a rather dangerous vocation.
Tomorrow we'll begin our Kora around Mount Kailash. Today I have to make a choice on whether to follow my rituals or whether to satisfy the people in my group. Thomas has suggested that we go clockwise, the Buddhist way, around Kailash. He wants to take photographs and doesn't want the group to break. He has enough responsibilities. It's difficult to say no to him. I could persuade the Dharmis to go anti-clockwise, the Pön way, but I know that they are attached to their own rituals. Mount Kailash is blessed, an emanation of Trungpa Shenrab, the Buddha of Pön. Kora is a mark of respect, and whether I go around the Pön way or the Buddhist way, I have to go around with pure devotion. I shouldn't be attached to my rituals. As my teacher explained, a fist or a palm, both are just hands, one and the same. If it makes everyone happier, I'll concede. Somehow, I feel I'm at the same crossroads as my forefathers, caught in the dilemma of Buddhism and Pön. Yet the Kora around the mountain is just another test of my devotion, and I shall not be swayed.
We've now traveled for 9 days, and yesterday's bad weather has vanished without a trace. Our morning has started with a spectacular, uninterrupted view of Mount Kailash. But every day brings with it a new problem. Yesterday was a question of whether to go around the mountain clockwise or anti-clockwise, and today it's a dispute between our 2 cooks. Tempers have flared, and our Nepali cook has hit our Tibetan cook with a rock. Both have now disappeared. We've been left to make our own breakfast, which tastes vaguely like cotton wool. I have not slept the whole night, and my stomach is reacting strongly to my stress. I just hope that we do not end up in the hands of the Chinese police. Sometimes, I wish I could be like Geleg. No bills to pay and no family to take care of. But unfortunately, I cannot. Everyone is anxious to start on the Kora, which traditionally starts at Darchen. Kailash, or Kang Rinpoche for the Buddhists, is the abode of Dhammachock. For Hindus, it is heaven, home of Shiva, and for the Jains, it is where Rishabhanatha gained enlightenment. The Burns see it as a soul mountain of the kings of Zhang. Kora, around Mount Kailash, is equally important for all religions. The Tarboche is considered the first important stop. From here, we will head towards the sky burial sites where people take a few moments to lie down and simulate death. A steep uphill climb from the channel grounds will take us to Dromala, the highest pass here at 5,500 meters. From there we shall head back down towards Darchen on the east side following the Zhung river. After a good night's sleep we will start our pilgrimage to the inner Kora, stopping at Gyantra Monastery en route. There are many holy places around the Kora. caves, monastery, and sky burial grounds. But if we stop everywhere, our permits for Zhung will run out. People see the Kora around Mount Kailash as a process of rebirth. The mountain is considered a mandala of the universe, containing all realms, including heaven and hell. But before rebirth, they must die. They experience death for a few moments in these charnel grounds where bodies are given sky burials, and leave behind a remnant of themselves, clothes, hair, or even a personal object. For Nyada, it is an opportunity to practice chid, a ceremony to overcome the fear of death. There are many myths surrounding the mountain. It is said that deities and spirits dwell here and only a pure mind can see them. The Bonpos believe that Kailash, or Gang Tise, is a radiant crystal that is forever pure and unchanging. It is blessed by the great white yak Wacheng Gekot, an emanation of the Buddha Abun Tompa Shenrab. Legends say that Gekot himself dissolved into the mountain as a pure white light to become the protective deity of the kingdom of Zhang. Pilgrims take 3 to 5 days to do the Kora, but the ones on a fast track to enlightenment prostrate for 16 days, 58 kilometers around the mountain.
The more tired I get, the more my mind is unsettled. Texts describe holy sites for the Pompos all along the Kora, but I find it difficult to locate most of them. I've started to find this climb relentless, and my irritation has started to bother me. The disturbances in my mind are perhaps also caused by meeting Pompo pilgrims on the way. It's a source of great embarrassment for me. Blue is the color of Pun, and I'm tempted to wear my jacket inside out, just so that nobody should recognize me as a Pun monk. I know it would be childish to do so, and I have to overcome this unease. I have to come back one day and do the Kora the Pun way.
My problems in keeping this group together never seem to end. Raptan has been complaining of a splitting headache and has been vomiting all night. But he said he would rather die than go back. Pilgrims die here every year of altitude sickness. Many, like Raptan, do not stop, for they believe that dying in Kailash is auspicious. It is said that the spirits of the pilgrims who die here will be directly taken to the realm of heaven. We are almost at Dromala, the highest pass here, and the climb is beginning to get steeper. Our Tibetan cook has still not been found, and the yak owners want to double the price. It is getting colder by the minute. I have a feeling that Geleg is anxious to complete the Kora and begin the second part of our journey to Kyunglung, the capital of Zhangshung. At 5,500 meters, the air is thin. I need to get Raptan to a lower altitude fast. I don't have any medicine for altitude sickness, and the last thing that I need is to have Geleg perform another poa. The death of the horse was bad enough. But Raptan, like the other Damis, seemed to be more concerned about following the tradition. Up here, on the Dromala, people are set to find friends for life. personal objects of people in the group are gathered, and after a prayer, objects are randomly matched. Those who match with each other will be friends forever. Geleg and Pema are to be friends. Sonam Gyalpo and Yada are going to be friends. And I am to be friend Zhang, the anthropologist. They say that a pilgrimage brings people together. For the Damis and Geleg, this is more true than it is for me.
Now that I finally have a little solitude, I feel sad rather than happy. The sudden departure of the Damis has left me with a sense of loss. The Chinese police summoned us, and Thomas had to pay $400 compensation to the Tibetan cook. The police were rather upset and insisted on checking everyone's documents. The Damis didn't have travel permits and were forced to return to their village. It was all very disconcerting. But at the same time, at least they fulfilled their goal of bathing in Manasarovar and doing the Kora around Kailash. It's only me, Thomas, and Zhang the anthropologist who can continue. We're at the portal of the inner Kora of Mount Kailash, a gateway that opens only once in 12 years. Yet we're not going in now. Thomas and Zhang have decided to forfeit their desires to go around the inner Kora of Kailash. My eagerness to visit Kyunglong, the capital of Zhang, must have affected them. I feel bad, but they say they'll come back sometime. They've been good to me. The souls of Zhang kings still live on Mount Kailash, and this pilgrimage to the Soul Mountain is an inspiration to continue on my path, to look into the nature of my mind. This mirror, the melong, symbolizes the nature of the mind. But my mind is racing with thoughts of old kingdoms, palaces, and ancient texts. Remains of my culture and tradition are scattered throughout this area, and it makes me sad that only a few know about my religion, my culture, and the roots of my tradition. But here, at Gyangdak Monastery, I feel a sense of calm. Long ago, where this monastery now stands, used to be the palace of the first king of Zhang. Donpa Shenrab, the Buddha of Pön and the prince of Olmo Lungring, left his kingdom to propagate the teachings of Pön in distant lands. He arrived at this palace and gave the first teachings of eternal Pön. People from near and far came to receive the teachings of Donpa Shenrab. The ruins of the palace still remain, and standing here, it makes me proud to be a part of this tradition.
Without the Damis around, I'm left alone with my own thoughts. The trip has been difficult for me. I feel I have been unfair to Geleg, but my loyalties were divided. Geleg renounced his desires to go around the Mount the Bun Way for my sake. His selflessness makes him everything a man should be. I have everything a man needs, and yet, far from being content, my mind is aggravated. I feel honored to be here with Geleg, especially as we approach Titapuri, the gateway to Kyunlong, the ancient capital of Changchun. At Titapuri, even the stones and water are said to have healing powers. Pilgrims bathe in the hot springs to cure diseases. Here, even the dust from the rock surfaces is said to have healing powers. Geleg says that it treats hangovers. I have not had a drink in 2 days, but if I had a hangover, I would not trust the powder. It tastes exactly like chalk powder. Pilgrims drink the sulfurous water to clean their stomachs, throwing up until their insides are empty. Tirthapuri also offers a chance to test the purity of one's karma. an offer no pilgrim can refuse. A white stone signifies merit, and a black stone means that one still has some bad karma to purify. Gelek seems amused by his black stone. Zhang also draws a black stone. In jest, Gelek teases us for going around Kailash the wrong way, and it seems that my own black stone is proof of that. We have finally arrived in Gurugam, in the Kyunglung Valley. It is difficult to imagine a bustling civilization of 30,000 people in this empty, barren landscape. The only visible man-made structure is the monastery. The rest is rock surfaces carved by the wind and the sun. Until the 10th century, a whole civilization existed along the banks of the Sutlej River. The caves and the canyons were winter homes for people. In the summer, they would leave their caves and live nomadic lives in tents with their animals. The once unique language and script of Zhang are all destroyed and forgotten. In the history of this desert land lies the roots of the Burn tradition, Gelek's tradition.
This day has been magical. I am here to encounter my past, my identity, and never had I anticipated meeting my childhood friend. I haven't seen Tsultem Gyaltsen for 20 years, and I never even realized he'd become a monk. The last time I saw him, we were at school together in Kham, and now he's an Amchi, a practitioner of traditional Tibetan medicine. His teacher is the much revered Gelong Rinpoche, a classmate of my teacher, Tenzin Namdak. My teacher had once told me about Gelong Rinpoche, a great man and an ember that kept the Pön religion alive inside Western Tibet. When he first came here to propagate the knowledge of Tumpa Shenrab, the meditation caves were in ruins, filled with bird droppings. He built a monastery out of the caves, where he too meditated, in the same place where the greatest masters of Pön have practiced. Rinpoche's stories about the palaces, kings and deities, the history of this blessed land, so many things about Shangzhung have yet to be unearthed from these mountains. Tumpa Shenrab gave his teachings of eternal Pön to the kings of Shangzhung in the valley of the Garuda in Kyunglung. The empire of Shangzhung was vast, with 18 castles, 360 temples, and 1,008 chötens. In the center of all this was the magical silver palace of Kyunglung Yulkar. It was a palace that touched the clouds and the sky, a palace of magnificent proportions with 108 chambers. Precious metals and stones decorated it. Its foundation was made of gold and its four sides of silver. The main iron portal would open and the kings would walk through the gates of silver. The ceilings had copper beams and the edges were made of sardonyx. Storm clouds swirled around it, blue dragons slept on it, and Garudas soared around its sides. The king and his family would live side by side with gods and deities. An unhappy princess, married to a Shangzhung king, once wrote, "The land that has fallen to my lot is a mouldy castle in Kyunglung. Others say a heavenly place. Seen from without, all gorges and boulders, but seen from within, all gold and precious stones. But when I look at it, it can't be good to be in there. Gloomy it is for all its glitter. The princess's gloom hangs heavy around here, and the glitter is all gone. The stones and the rocks are the only remains of the once magnificent kingdom. It makes me sad to think that my civilization has been so ignored, even by the modern-day archaeologists.
We've been here for 2 days and Geleg has hardly spoken. He seems distraught by the naked landscape. I wish I could be privy to his thoughts, but for now, his heart is in the ruins of the palace of Kyunglung Nulga, and with his friend Sultrin Gyaltsen, he is off in pursuit of magical stories in this desert land.
My present and my past have merged in these ruins. Being here with Sultan Gyaltsen, I wonder if I've taken the right path in life. Our lives were almost the same. Summer grazing the animals in green pastures and winters studying in the Chinese school. I escaped Tibet following the footsteps of my teacher. Sultan Gyaltsen also tried. Twice. But twice he was unsuccessful. Ultimately, it's only fate that determined our paths. The goals of our lives are one and the same. Maybe, if I hadn't escaped, my life would have been spent meditating in these ruins. But I would have missed all the teachings of my teacher, Tenzin Namdak. His words of compassion have guided my life, and I am what I am because of him. I saw him when I was 19 in my village in Kham. He gave the teachings of eternal Pön, the words of Tumpa Shenrab, and everyone cried. Not knowing why, I cried too. Today, in these empty landscapes, once again, I want to cry.
One last river crossing and we shall reach our final destination, 9 kilometers away. I understand that there is yet another silver palace there. Many scholars have debated on which of the two ruins was the actual silver palace. For me, one ruin looks the same as the other. But Geleg seems to hang on to the hope to find something tangible from the kingdom that no longer exists. Raising a family out of photographing these mountains and organizing expeditions has hardened me. My job is demanding, and I know I cannot follow Geleg's path. But his faith has made me rethink my path in life. Perhaps this is the purpose of the trip for me.
Somewhere in these empty ruins, in these forgotten caves and landscape, I had hoped to find the roots of my tradition. But I should have realized that this pilgrimage was just a test from my teacher. My traditions lie not in these rocks, but in the words of Tumpa Shenrab, in his teachings that have been passed on to us. The age of fire is dissipated by the wind. The wind is gathered up by water. The water is dispersed into dust. Nothing except knowledge is permanent.